First of all, I want to thank the people of South Carolina who turned out this morning in record numbers. I was getting pictures this morning, literally as the polls opened, of people standing in line in Orangeburg and Camden and Sumter and Columbia and Charleston. And the Election Commission tells us that more people had voted by noon today than typically vote on an opening day of early votes. And so it's a victory for the people of South Carolina who let it be known to everybody that their vote matters, their vote counts. They did not want us to come in and step on an election that they had already made decisions about, had already invested time in knocking on doors, listening to candidates, and making a decision about who would represent them at statewide, locally, and in Congress. And so it really is a victory for the people of South Carolina. Look, to my colleagues, both Democrat and Republican, I think it's proof that our rules matter, that the process works. There were attempts within the constraints of the rules to make changes to the rules. Those failed. There were efforts to say, wow, I wish we didn't have all those days built in. But those days were built in for a purpose that this type of debate should be meaningful, it should be measured, and we should listen. I was proud of the people who showed up at the public hearing that the Judiciary Committee held last, I guess it was Wednesday, and let their feelings be known. And by an overwhelming majority, the people who came out and spoke that day said, wrong time, wrong effort. And we were listening. And not only were we listening, as you saw from the vote there, a bipartisan group of the South Carolinas finally came together in the end and just said, it's just too late, guys. It's just too late. Now, does that mean that we're not going to have redistricting in South Carolina? At some point we will. It may be after the next census, and it may be sooner. But I can assure you that when and if we do it again, we'll do it in the normal order, which is that we will ask people around the state what they think. We will hear public testimony around the state. We will have a committee process. We will have a map room where people can go and draw maps. We won't have somebody from out of state come talk to us for 7 minutes and take no questions and tell us this is the map, take it or leave it. That's the point here, is that we have a process to follow, and whether you wanted the maps or you didn't want the maps, this was just the wrong way to go about this. And so I salute those people who've worked very hard, who've texted us, called us, whatever the other thing they do, social media did us. I also want to take this time to thank another group of people that you will never know. And those were the plaintiffs and the lawyers who have worked over this weekend to have lawsuits ready to be filed in the event that this did not go forward. From the League of Women Voters to the ACLU, to my son, to everybody else who was ready to go with this case, they were working hard to make sure that even if the vote didn't come out the way that it did, the challenge would go on, because this is impactful and it's meaningful. I also want to thank this group right here. We couldn't have done it if we all weren't sticking together, working hard. Everybody was here today, and we were able to be persuasive. And look, it's not us that persuaded the Republicans. It was the people. It was them. When they got up this morning, normally they would have gone to work, taken their kids to daycare, maybe gone on vacation, but they didn't today. They went out to their early voting places, and they did so in ways that we have not seen before. I think most of you who are used to going to early voting, you go and you vote. Well, today if you went, you stood in line, and that's important. And that says that the people of South Carolina are paying attention, and that they wanted us to know, they wanted you to know, their vote matters. And I'll turn it over to any of my other members who would like to.
Jump in there, Brad.
All right.
Thank you all for following this and being engaged. And like Senator Hutto mentioned, this isn't just a win for one political party. This is a win for South Carolina. And I want to highlight the veterans that took time, like this gentleman, retired colonel back here. Round of applause for the veterans. This lady right here, Wade over here, that took time out of their Memorial Day weekend to come here and make their voices heard. having the veteran voice front and center was one of the key things to defeating this effort and making sure that military ballots overseas that have already been cast and have already been mailed were counted. The other big factor is we put out the call over the weekend, South Carolina show up and do a show of force at the polls, and by God, South Carolina responded. This is a win for South Carolina today. We broke, before noon, we broke the early voting record. Think about that for a second. People are fired up over this. People don't want their vote being messed around with. They don't want their districts being messed around with at the last moment. And I hope, my prayer is this momentum needs to continue to November. Remember who was pushing this and who wasn't. Remember who stood up and fought. Remember who stood on the side of South Carolina in this matter. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Dion Tedder, Senate District 42. Just want to thank all South Carolinians because, as has been stated before, and our leader did an eloquent job with it, this is about you. This is about we the people. We said before in a prior press conference that this was not a partisan issue. It is not Republican or Democrat alike. In fact, this morning there were independents, people who didn't know who they were going to vote for, Republicans and Democrats, with lines out of the door in every precinct in South Carolina. And that's because the people were tired of being told what to do by outsiders. Today, South Carolina stood up. South Carolina stood up to outsiders, to Washington, D.C. And we reinsured that our state process is our state process, and nobody's going to come in and bully us. Not Republicans, not Democrats. And thank you to all of those people who came up to the committee process, although it was short in notice, that drove up, took the time to come and testify before our committee. We allowed everyone to be heard, and your voices are heard. For those over the weekend who asked us Saturday when we adjourned, what can we do? Everybody said, get out to the polls. First day of early voting, we need a massive turnout. You, the people, can help stop this. And you, the people, did exactly that. Every church on Sunday, pulpits were talking about this, pastors talking about this. And it was also stated that if this redistricting process went forward, that if we attempted to disenfranchise voters, that if we attempted to disrupt the process, that if we attempted to take the voice away from people, that black voters would turn out and it would have repercussions. And I think that message was heard loud and clearly. If you look at the polls this morning, if you look at the precincts, lines are still happening. Just a few minutes ago, I know that there was over 32,000 voters this morning, and we're not even halfway through the day. People are still planning to go on their lunch breaks and go when they can get off work, and this is just the first day. South Carolinians are sending a message that their votes count and their voices matter, and I'm grateful to be a part of this caucus who was unified the entire time, who fought together, who understood the process, and most importantly, listened to people. We engaged with not only Democrats, but Republicans and people who opposed our ideas. We had real conversations to try to explain to people it's not about the map. It's about the process. It's about the timing in which we are doing this and the disenfranchisement of those voters. And to the congressional candidates that have already filed and that have raised so much money and have been working hard, congratulations to you, because your hard work is not in vain. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tamika Isaac Devine, Senate District 19, and I'm not going to reiterate what my colleagues have said, but what I do want to say is I'm getting a lot of texts saying, what's next? My what's next to you is stay engaged. You have heard all of us say that this did not happen because of us, it happened because of you. It happened because the voters of South Carolina said, I want my voice to be heard. People have been engaged with us throughout the weekend and throughout the week, asking questions, watching the feed. Actually, while we were in there, I had texts because the app was down, and people were watching the app and they couldn't watch us. There have never been so many people engaged in what we're doing. But y'all, that needs to happen every single day. This was an issue. It was a critically important issue for all the voters of South Carolina. But what we fight for you every single day, all of those issues are critical. And what this result tells us today is that people want their representatives to listen. They want their representatives to be engaged with them. You've engaged with us to this point. I'm going to ask you to stay engaged between now, between November, and after November. If we truly want a South Carolina that works for all South Carolinians, we have got to get past party politics. These maps were drawn in a way that excluded the voices of the people. And you have told us we don't want to be excluded. We want to be included. We want to be engaged. And so we need, if we're going to get to South Carolina, that everybody's voice is valued throughout the legislative process, we need you to stay engaged. We need you to come up here and watch. We need you to fight with us. We will continue to fight for you, but we also want you to continue to fight for us. We are only 12, but God, us 12, we did a lot this last week. But imagine if we were able to have you with us every single day. And so I just ask you to stay engaged throughout the summer. And when we come back, whether it's June 10th or next January, we will continue to work to make sure that we have a South Carolina that fights for everybody. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Overture Walker for Senate District 22. I'm not going to belabor points that have been made already by my colleagues. I agree with everything that has been said, and I hope no one takes umbrage at this next statement, but this is why the Senate has a reputation as being the most deliberative body. We were asked to take up maps over the course, within a 2-week period, redraw congressional districts in a state that has over 5 million people. And, I got my start in politics for Richland County Council. That was in 2020. And at that time, we were looking at redrawing lines. And that was, about 400,000 people. And that took a few months. And here we were being asked by Washington, D.C. to redraw 7 congressional districts within the course of a 2-week period. Now, of course, that passed in the House pretty quickly, and it landed in the Senate last Wednesday, a very short time period. But ultimately, us being the deliberative body that we are, decided that the people of South Carolina deserve better than that. And it wasn't just Democrats, although that's who's standing before you right now, but this was a bipartisan effort. We just could not bring ourselves to vote for maps that would have had the effect of eliminating the only majority-minority congressional district in South Carolina, eliminating the only Democratic congressional district in South Carolina, and causing massive confusion for the voters, as well as imposing an undue hardship and burden on so many of our citizens who decided to volunteer their time working at the polls. That was just unfair, and we felt that the people of South Carolina deserve so much better than that, not to mention that this map would have, or it included rather, precincts that had already been eliminated. So we were just looking at mass dysfunction and mass confusion. And again, the people of South Carolina deserve so much better than that, from their elected officials on both sides of the aisle. We're just glad that we were able to reach a bipartisan consensus, if you will, on what was the best path or the best solution for the people of South Carolina. And this is where we find ourselves. And it is a great day for the state of South Carolina. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Russell Ott, Senate District 26. I'm not going to take long. I just, again, want to reiterate the thanks that I think that you've been hearing consistently from the members of this caucus. I was thinking to myself, I don't typically keep journals and notes from pieces of legislation or particular issues, but I think I'm going to hold on to this one. Because I think this is something that a lot of us are going to look back on and say this was an important time. This is an important piece of South Carolina history. And I don't think that the irony can be lost. An issue that by definition was intended to be hyper-partisan, that was supposed to be divisive of individuals and groups and communities, ended up being something that was so bipartisan that I think actually unified South Carolina in the way that not many other pieces of legislation can. What you saw is leaders from across this state simply say, it's South Carolina first for us. We're not going to be dictated to by Washington or folks that don't live in the state of South Carolina. We're not going to listen to them tell us what is best for our state. And I think that's a very proud moment for all of us, and I certainly want to commend the members of the Republican caucus that joined together with Democrats and members of the Democratic caucus to ultimately end up with the result that you saw today. It's a really big deal, but nevertheless, the people that deserve the credit for this being the final result are certainly the voters of South Carolina who answered the call. I can't tell you, Republican and Democrats alike were reaching out to myself, all of us, saying, what can we do? What can we do to help stop this? The answer was, go vote on Tuesday, and boy, did they listen, and boy, did they show up. So very proud to be standing with these individuals, very proud of the result that we saw today. Thank y'all.
Carl Allen, Senate District 7, Greenville County. Certainly, I want to take a moment to say how proud I am being one of the older guys to some of these younger senators, to see them fight, to see them coalesce together, to see them read the rules and use their knowledge for who? The people of the great state of South Carolina, to fight with the people, seeing the Democrats align themselves on an issue where you send back a message to whoever sent or attempted to send a message to us to tell us in South Carolina what to do with our congressional maps. To fight, to see young Democrats fight and send back a message to those in D.C. that want to skip the process, that 6 is not good enough. They want all 7 of the congressional districts. And what the people of South Carolina has said by their actions in going to early voting polls throughout this great state, they have said that, yes, this is a place of smiling faces and beautiful places. And yes, this is a place where when we breathe, we hope. But we hope to have a South Carolina that is inclusive for the best interests of all of the citizens of South Carolina. And so what you saw is us partnering with our colleagues, some across the aisle, who are saying now is the time to stand with Democrats and stand and make a difference in improving the quality of life for all citizens. And we will not call a good map, one that is a bad map, a good map. We cannot and will not do that. We will not have a map, a congressional map in South Carolina that does not include accurate information, accurate precincts, and we will not have one in South Carolina that does not follow the process and the rules. And so on behalf of Democrats in South Carolina, we say to you, thank you to the people that are out there voting now. It is your efforts that has allowed us to be able to represent you in a way that you would be proud, and to say thank you to the partisan colleagues across the aisle that joined us to say that we stand up for the people in South Carolina.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ronnie Sabb, Senate District 32, and I, like my colleagues, want to say thank you to everybody, and I, like my colleagues, have no intent of being repetitive. but I did want to lend my voice to this discussion and to this moment. I heard the senator from Calhoun, Senator Ott, talk about what could have happened. And that is this notion that we would become divided, that we would turn on each other, that we would engage in a debate that was not worthy of the dignity of this institution. And I say once again, that those who have the idea in mind, that they can turn us from who we are, once again failed. What am I talking about? When you think in terms of what happened in Charleston not long ago, when a deranged mind decided that he would engage in a despicable act that claimed several lives, he did it with the idea in mind of what? A race war. The image of that I shall never forget is all of those folks on that bridge in Charleston, and the young man saying, "This is how we riot in South Carolina. We riot as a result of all of us coming together with a voice that says hate won't win." And I think for those who've paid attention, you've witnessed how debates ought to take place. You've witnessed the importance of having minority voices that are part of the conversation. And so I hope that the message that resounds from this moment is one that makes clear all voices matter. And if you've got a group and all of the thinking is the same, you just can't have the best results, the best ideas that come from a one-sided conversation. And so I'll end on two notes. One is that someone mentioned that our motto is, while I breathe, I hope. I think what the people of South Carolina did was they changed the wording a little bit and said, while I breathe, I vote. Not long ago, we paid homage to an incredible South Carolinian as the remains of the Reverend Jesse Jackson lied here. And I think we remember, as a big part of his legacy, Senator from Greenville, that he reminded us at a time when we needed to know that we are somebody. And I think that he'd be proud as we stand here today, and we are, as we would say, that we are somebody because we vote. Thank you all so much. Thank you. I really intended to do that. Y'all, last year was a tough year for the Senate Democratic Caucus. When the leader came to me and told me that he would not be with us for most of the session, that was a moment for us all. But last year, and then fast forward to this year, and I said to him yesterday in a text how proud I was of him and how better off we are with his leadership. And I'm going to tell it, Brad, Mr. Leader.
Go ahead.
So he was late, y'all, coming to us today. He didn't get here until after 12. He had a very important appointment. And as a result of that appointment, we had good news. And so we're just praying for his continuous good health, and that the Lord would continue to bless him, not only with good health, but with the clarity of thought, in order that he might continue to lead us in the direction that we're going. And so, if you all don't mind, let's give it up for our leader.
We'll take questions at this time. Perfect.
When did you all figure out that the rules were going to work in your favor as a way to defeat this?
As a senator from Greenville said earlier, when you start learning the rules and learn how they can work in your favor, We knew that we had some days ahead of us. We were willing to fight as long as it took. And this group behind me said, we will be here as long as it takes. We brought plenty of food, plenty of snacks to be here for the next couple of days, knowing that we had 46 hours, a lot of amendments to go through. And so even if they wanted to stay the night, stay tomorrow, this team was ready to fight because we looked at the rules. We knew there were some challenges, but we also knew that the longer we could conversate with our colleagues and South Carolinians to show up to vote, we knew we were in a much better place when you showed up this morning to vote, and that's exactly how we knew the rules would play in our favor. And so thank you for that question.
Jeffrey, I'll jump in real quick. We knew Tuesday of last week. Our leader here, Senator Hutto, had a day-by-day map of what we needed to do to extend this debate. And I'll be frank, our goal going into this was to delay passage till today. We got bonus. We killed it today. So it was a day-by-day plan that we developed last week with our leader.
All right, any other questions?
Do you all anticipate this coming up again? I mean, even before there was this sudden late-stage rush, there was a conversation, at least on the House side, to try and redraw maps, mid-cycle, and there's already been some talk that maybe we revisit state Senate seats or state House seats, for example, and just didn't know if you anticipate another fight in the future.
So obviously we will come back on June the 10th. Obviously this bill could still be brought up at that time. But we believe, just as our colleagues said behind me, that we believe if we're going to do redistricting, we're going to do it the correct way. We're going to have that public input. We're going to talk to the public like we've done in the past. We're going to follow the procedures and the guidelines that we have voted on. As you heard me testify in our Senate Judiciary, we just threw out the rules. We didn't want any of those. And so we will stand with the people and make sure there is an open process. So whether it's House redistricting, Senate redistricting, or congressional redistricting, it will follow the same process as we've done for the last years here in the South Carolina history.
Chime in on this one. And so what I want to share is that, yes, I think many of us have a belief that they will come at Democrats in the next elections, that it's almost a circumstance where you just do what you want to do with lines. And so I would not be at all surprised if there's not an effort, rather than us being 12, to be 8. And so what we want folks to understand that more than just a D or an hour or an ARA, that it's ideas, it's principles, it's commitment. And so the thought is that even if they redraw the lines, that the people will see the importance of our work and say, well, wait a minute, I saw them working. I heard about their platform and what it represents. That's who I am. That's the kind of state that I want to live in, and that's the kind of circumstance where when they fight for the right causes and not just for the sake of fighting. And so we believe, yes, the likelihood is that maps will be drawn, obviously, if not before, in the 10-year cycle. But we want the people of South Carolina to know how important it is to have a diverse body with diverse ideas, and I think that's what will make us a great state.
On the rules question, were you surprised that the House and the governor left that opening to where you could extend this out to today as opposed to maybe taking a day or two and shoving this calendar back to Sunday or Monday of this week?
Yeah, so I think the House, obviously, as their rules changed along the way and how they jumped in and took votes and changed their rules, I think the public said that's not right. That's out. I mean, there was a lawsuit that obviously got dismissed, but ultimately when it comes to the Senate, that's one of the reasons the rules matter so much. If we've learned anything in this body is that the rules are extremely important because things like this do happen. And so if you don't have rules and process, you fail South Carolinians. And so today we were able to follow the rules, follow the process, and do the right thing for South Carolinians, and that's what we're going to continue to fight for.
And let me say, too, as we were preparing for this, we were in consultation with our colleagues in the House, and many of them asked, what is the absolute deadline that we have to delay this to give you the chance to win? And I recall telling them basically as long as possible, but if you could at least get it so that we don't have to come back until Wednesday. And that's what happened, is we ended up coming back on Wednesday, and that was, if you gamed it out, if we had come back before last Wednesday, we'd have been one day before early voting. Would have been Memorial Day, which I always found ironic that we were going to be out there trying to take away military votes on Memorial Day. But be that as it may, I do want to say that we owe a debt of gratitude to the House Democrats who did their part by taking up the bill in a methodical manner and using the rules as best they could. Look, they were using the rules so well, they had to change the rules. And they tried to do that here, but our rules make it very hard to change the rules.
Were you surprised that there was an initial deadline put out there by House leadership of the start of early voting, and then I know they walked back from that a little bit, but were you surprised they initially put that out there?
I don't really pay attention to what House leadership does. I'm not good to speak on that issue. I don't know what they did.
Senator, when it comes to that, what you're talking about, do you think that House Republicans messed up by not going into session that weekend and moving that timeline up? Did they fumble the ball in your opinion?
Well, I did find it, I was trying to convince my colleagues that we shouldn't be in session on a Sunday and a Saturday when the House didn't do it. If they thought it was so important, why didn't they do it? It did surprise me a little bit that they didn't stay in session because look, anybody who had both sets of rules could sit down and do a backwards calendar and figure out what the pinch point was going to be. And there were a couple, but the main one was going to be this morning when the people of South Carolina spoke up in droves and turned out to vote.
Do you see this as more of a reality check? I mean, we just heard from Senator Ott saying this is a bipartisan moment, but again, because of the timeline, because of early voting, everyone kind of did coalesce on that. But do you think that this is a rebuke more to Washington in general, or do you think it's directly a rebuke to Donald Trump's push here?
Well, I would say what it is South Carolina standing up to be South Carolina, okay? We're just not, if you go back anywhere back in history, we're just generally not a state that gets pushed around by Washington, and this is yet another example of that. I was told by some of my colleagues that the White House was calling them, and they never called me. So I know there was pressure being put on various members, but to their credit, those who initially saw this as problematic based on the Alexander decision, they held their ground and slowly persuaded others within their conference that this just wasn't the right thing to do. And to the question earlier, will we revisit it before we get to the census in 2030? If I had to predict, I'd say we probably will. But it's not a bad thing, as long as we do it in an orderly fashion and have input from the voters and the people of South Carolina. Thank y'all. Okay. Yes, sir.
Does the result today prove that votes matter?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Absolutely. I can tell you, I started off today by saying that this is a victory for the people of South Carolina, and the fact that they were willing to take the time out today to go stand in line. Not just, it wasn't just that they drove up and early voted. They got in line to vote. And I know, like in Orangeburg, there was a line of cars to curbside vote, in addition to people who could get out and stand in line to vote. And that just didn't happen in Orangeburg. It happened across the state. Republicans and Democrats showing up early to vote, and that was not lost on the members inside as they cast their vote today.
First day of early voting.
That's right. That's right.
Is there a favorite version of the I voted sticker that you all have?
I like the blue wave. I like
Charleston.
Thank y'all.
Thank y'all so much.
Hey, guys.